For this afternoon and tonight, a significant winter storm, including heavy snow with blowing and freezing snow.
Hello and welcome to the SnowBrains podcast, where it's my job to interview the most intelligent people in the snow sports industry and pass their fascinating knowledge on to you, our listeners. I'm your host, Miles Clark. I'm a professional free skier, a mountain guide, an Alaska heli ski guide, a UC Berkeley molecular cell biology graduate, the founder and CEO of SnowBrains, and today is the final day of our supernatural ski trip to El Chalten in Argentine Patagonia. It's been a wild couple of months down here with some of the most aesthetic ski lines I've ever experienced in my life. 107 miles traveled, 55,300 vertical feet climbed, 111 hours of activity, 11 ski days, 5 nights of camping, 3 gelato double scoops, 1 stomach bug, 2 drones lost and found, 11 flamingos, 13 emerald parakeets, actually maybe more, we saw a bunch yesterday, 1 aborted mission, and 0 whale mules spotted. This episode of the SnowBrains podcast is sponsored by Mount Bachelor. You can follow the herd, or you can find a mountain with its own rhythm, its own flavor, and its own brand of fun. With 360-degree skiing and one of the longest seasons in the country, over 4,000 skiable acres, discover why Mount Bachelor should be your next ski destination. Lift tickets start at $99. Or just scan your Ikon Pass. Book your trip today at mountbachelor.com. My guest today is Matt Sterbenz, the guy who lit a fire under modern free skiing. He founded Forefront Skis, built the brand out of a Salt Lake City garage, and proved that when riders design the gear, the whole sport changes. Matt turned rebellion into innovation, built a cult following, and helped define the look and feel of independent skiing. This is SnowBrains, and today we're talking to the man who made skis with soul. Hello, Matt. Thank you so much for being on the show. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing fabulous, Miles. Thanks for having me.
I'm stoked to have you. When did you ski last?
I'm on Baker Pond Skim, and it must have been early June.
Oh, that's legit, man. Nice. How many days did you ski last winter?
Oh, I stopped counting. I was over 110 when I stopped counting. So
that's not bad, man. That's actually damn good.
It felt pretty strong towards the end of the season. I hadn't skied that many days in recent, memory, and I just forgot how bulletproof you get skiing that frequently. So that was probably the most physical difference I felt. Was like I could just ski all day towards the end of the season without getting tired or fatigued, and I could just go back-to-back days.
I definitely want to hear, as we get more into everything, how much you were able to ski while building these companies. Because I know that so many people, the dream is, I'm going to work in the ski industry and ski every day. And then especially if they start to have success, man, they don't ski very much. So I'm curious how that went for you. Because today I really want to dig into, obviously you started Forefront and then you started Wonder, you sold Forefront, started Wonder. You've been neck deep in the ski industry, by your own choice and by your own way and your own independent way, which I think is extremely rare. So I'm excited to hear all these stories. But first, I would love to hear your quick and dirty 3-minute or so life story.
So, classic story of a Midwesterner who just got the bug at a young age. Family was totally kind of caught off guard by this infatuation of skiing, and quite honestly, I think it originated from just not being a part of a team sport for part of the school year. I was raised in a very dense stick and ball community where you just went from discipline to discipline, oftentimes with the same coach or definitely under the same athletic department. And I just grew tired of it. I loved football. I loved baseball. Basketball was kind of take it or leave it. And so I gave that up early age to start skiing. And then all of a sudden I had this neutral venue to express myself athletically. It certainly wasn't much of a venue, but I didn't know any different. No one in my family skied. So all of our vacations as a family were always east of the Mississippi to the southeast to go see my grandparents in Florida and stuff like that. So it kind of ended up just being my thing. And as we get older, the thing that's your thing becomes more who you are. And I was able to go through high school with perspective that these team sports were going to ultimately terminate once I graduated. I didn't have the interest to pursue college athletics because I already knew I wanted to be a skier. And the only thing getting between me and moving to the Rockies was college. So, I made my way through Illinois, Wisconsin, into Minneapolis for school. And then as soon as I graduated, I moved to Truckee and got a job working full-time in the parking lot for Rob Cronkite at what was at the time Squaw Valley.
Nice, man.
And it was just the gig, you know. As soon as the car's parked, my job with that patron was done. And that's when everybody else's job started at the ski area. So we were held to a pretty strict discipline of being up early. It was fairly demeaning at times. We got treated like a human cone. We truly were nothing more than that. The snow would be so frequent that we wouldn't be able to stripe the lot. So we'd have to physically let patrons out at the end of the day and ensure prior to that they didn't, park each other in. So it wasn't a high intelligence job, but everybody in the crew was really athletically driven, including our boss, Rob. He was constantly pulling up next to us while we're standing out there flagging cars and be like, drop and give me 20. Like, just give me 20 push-ups right now. And
no way, really? I love that.
Totally. Yeah. And he's like, why are you not signed up for a contest? Like, what's going on? And just like super high encouragement to just go and pursue it. Cause he's like, this isn't your thing. This isn't your life. This is a moment in time. And if you need more access to pursue the dreams that you moved here with, I'm the first person to help make that happen. And so it was super encouraging to be a part of that scene. And I attribute a lot of my ambition and success to Rob and that era. The first week I moved to Truckee and working in the parking lot, I recall vividly parking Shane McConkey and Scott Gaffney for early ups.
Oh, wow.
Where they were just going up to take the tram ride, and I don't know. My imagination was they're going to go send something off the chimney, right? And
what year was that, your first year?
I guess I spent a couple abbreviated winters in the late 90s just because my college was on trimesters. So I could split between Christmas break and spring break and then make up some of those credits in the summertime and not bag a half a year of school, because I was, again, my main thing was just graduating. I just needed to move permanently to the mountains, but I had this opportunity to go to school and it meant a lot to my parents. So yeah, I even contractually committed to my father that I would come back to school if he allowed me to skip a trimester. Yeah. And it was just like that. It was just such a foreign interest. They didn't know how to manage it. They're like, what are you doing at the ski area? And I'm like, well, I don't even know, actually, but I know I love it. And
I'd love to see that contract.
Yeah, it's around. I would kind of love to see it too. But yeah, so I kind of grew up as a lost soul on the ski area. If you didn't have parents involved, you weren't a ski racer. Back then, there weren't terrain parks, so we just skied moguls. And we wore them in, we skied them out. And then as long as we were within the confines of the moguls, we could kind of express ourselves however we felt we wished. And that was jumping and learning aerial maneuvers and stuff like that. So I showed up out west with a fair bit of air awareness and the ability to make my way down a mogul run, but I didn't know anything about skiing powder. I didn't know anything about real fall line. The longest run on my hometown hill was 220 feet or something.
What was your hometown hill?
Most notably Wilmot, which is right
That's
on
a
the
famous
Illinois.
one.
Yeah, it became more well known because Vail bought it. It was a privately owned, like all the little ski areas around there at the time. Just kind of a little bit of a rundown zone. It wasn't super glamorous or anything. You had to really love it to really pursue it to the degree that we did in frequency. I would have a pass there, I'd have a pass up north at Alpine, a pass at this other place that was known as Hot Dog Mountain. It was a ski area as part of the Playboy Club. Hugh Hefner opened up a resort that had a ski area that was called Hot Dog Mountain. Yeah, it's cool. So there was a lot of little ski areas in the area, and there was a lot of Chicago tourism that helped feed into them, especially weekends. Just bus after bus of bringing kids from the city into the ski area to experience it. And then, Vail bought it. And obviously, they just were looking to get the metropolitan community to commit to an Epic Pass or whatever. Things changed a little bit, obviously, but I had moved on, and I still like going back there. I still love skiing it. I don't fall out of love with that stuff. It's so deeply ingrained. I don't know. And through all the injuries and everything, I would have thought by now I would have been able to shake this bug of just dire love for skiing, but I can't. I mean, it's just there.
It's addictive.
Totally. Yeah. Physically, sometimes it's painful, but I'm just still so in love with it that I work through. And it's taken me so many places, and it's really a sport that if you commit to it, you get a lot out of it. So I've made it my life in every which way you can think of. Occupationally, my friend network, the places I seek to travel, the cultures I bring with me, and meeting new people and pursuit of meeting newer people. It's all more or less about skiing. That's been cool. It's been a great guiding light. I'm fortunate to have found it even in the central states of America.
No, I think that gratefulness is the key. There's so few of us that get to live this lifestyle. You just have to be grateful. It's such a lucky, special, fun, incredible thing. Well, you definitely brushed over how you founded Forefront Skis, which became a huge deal. And I've got to know, what was the first spark of inspiration that led you to start Forefront in a garage in Truckee, California in 2002, I believe?
Yep, that's right. Well, it's just the next chapter of what was supposed to be a 3-minute abbreviation of my life story. I've brought you and the listeners to Tahoe. We're playing Human Cone. We're trying to defend ourselves that we're in hot pursuit of a ski career to our employer. And I'm surrounded by, at the time, in my opinion, the world's best. And so I have like incredible inspiration everywhere I look. I mean, the lines that are being laid down day after day in that mountain are on full display. And it's like, damn, that's ballsy, or like, wow, like that's beautiful. There's just like aerial vantage points of like just insane skiing on every lift around that place. And I got to witness kind of firsthand how it's done. And I was like, I want to be a part of that community. I want to be seen. It's what I've been working my whole life for. So at the time, like if you weren't a pro skier and you didn't work in construction or hospitality, you didn't truly belong in the greater North Tahoe community. Like it was hard to make ends meet. There was a lot of transient trust funders, people who you became close with and then they just vanished. It's like, hey, like what happened to Dan? They're like, oh yeah, he went back east to go work for the family business. It's like, oh, like Dan never had any intention to like actually build a life out here. He was just basically what I've come to know as like a gap year in terms of like the next obvious step, and so I was like, no, like I'm not moving back. I need to figure this out. And sure, construction came into my life and I helped build some homes and stuff in the summer to make ends meet so I could save up for the winters, but nothing ever got between me and my skis. And I started competing and I got an opportunity to do that early on as like the U.S. Free Skiing Open was happening in Vail. X Games had just taken on to skiing. It was still back east, I think Mount Snow maybe or something like that. It hadn't even gone yet to Crested Butte. Right. And so like the sports were still really early in their infancy, and Twin Tips, maybe a manufacturer offered them one or two, but they weren't really yet catching on. And so I saw myself arriving to a community of like honestly like just teenagers, like just a bunch of super enthusiastic, passionate skiers, most of whom grew up in some type of conventional skiing background, whether it be traditional freestyle or ski racing. And so they all had like a pretty strong background in skiing. I guess I had 4 years of pent up aggression of just being in school and being distant from the whole thing. When I showed up, I'm like, I'm skiing in the rain, I'm skiing, every day I can. And I'm just going to sponge off of all these rad skiers. And then I came to realize like fairly quickly, like there wasn't really the type of, embrace of the sport that I was witnessing firsthand from the manufacturers abroad. Domestically, there was like Line Skis was making snowblades and they were putting some marketing energy into it. Chris Osnes had just gotten a ski with them. It was like a 191, I think it was called the Dragon. And that was really cool. Skogan Spring jumped on that shortly thereafter. But then like there was like, whispers of the Oakley ski team banding together to create a brand, and I'm looking around like, dude, I'm skiing for a ski racing heritage brand with Fisher Sports, and they're fairly removed from this scene. Like I have local support with the rep in the area, Will Lockenauer, big respect to him for giving me my chance, but like outside of the two of us, I'm not sure there was really any enthusiasm to pursue free skiing the way that I saw it needed to be pursued. And so, working some construction and having peers that were snowboarders, and there was local snowboard brands already, I was like, dude, I'm just going to start building skis. So a friend of mine, Jay Gruby, still lives in Truckee. He had been building snowboards with another Jay for a brand named Smoke and Snowboards. Gruby had like bailed on that scene and was starting up his own little deal and built up a ski press. And or a snowboard press, and we were real friendly because he worked at the moto shop, and I was super into dirt biking, still am. He was like, well, I'd be psyched to like see if we can build some skis on my press. And I came over there, and his 2 vertical posts of his press is just an I-beam press. It was 180 centimeters in width. And I was like, cool, we can build a 180 ski. And that's how the MSP 180 became the 180, you know. And I had the opportunity to design skis with Fisher Sports just before that. It was a unique opportunity in that regard. I showed up at the Vegas trade show, and you know, I had a couple of clips of me skiing on some skis that they were flowing me that were targeting free skiing but didn't necessarily represent the most modern physique in design. And luckily for me, there was an Austrian there on the product side who, had I had any more awareness, I probably would have spoken a little bit less opinionated, but I didn't know who it was, and I was just kind of like, yeah, man, like, you guys are blowing it. Like, this, if you want to like salvage your reputation as a ski builder, like, you need to start to listen to the people who are actually skiing these skis, because these things are like way off base. And gosh, I don't know, I got lucky, and they were like, cool, let's work with you in designing a ski. And so,
wow,
yeah, shocked. I was like, okay. Like, all of a sudden, we're moving ahead, and I don't have any credentials in designing skis. I was, if anything, akin to engineering. I was like a minor art major in college, you know? I could draw something. I shot some numbers over to them, just thinking these would be good numbers to start with as a park ski, and they started to apply them and built some skis. They were really well-built skis, sandwich construction skis, which were much different than their initial introduction of a capped twin-tip ski. And I didn't know much about ski construction then, but I knew that these skied a lot better than the last ones. And I was like, I don't know what you did, but don't change a thing. These things rip, you know?
Nice.
And they were like, right on, like, this is cool. And they started to build some enthusiasm around the category. And I went out that year. It was like maybe 2001. There was like this big air event. Just came across the footage a minute ago. It's pretty wild. It was in Vienna, and they would erect this big scaffolding, big air feature, with the backdrop being this massive metropolitan Ferris wheel that has like tram cars.
Whoa.
Yeah, for cabins. And they lit it up with swatch with lasers to count down to midnight. So I was fortunate to get the opportunity to compete in this big air event for New Year's on these new prototype Fisher skis, you know, which are Austrian built. My first time like interacting with an international team manager. His name is Jörg Johannes, I believe. He's a ski guide. He's a super cool guy. Long before I knew anything about ski guiding. I don't know. It just ended up being my night, and I won the event. And
no way. Damn, dude.
Yeah, Yoon Olsen got second. Henrik Winstedt got third.
I had no idea you skied on that level. What tricks were you guys throwing?
Yeah, those were like 900s.
That's sick back then, man. Especially that's sick now to me.
Yeah, so I got this big check and this big stage presentation and tradition to dance to the waltz on New Year's in Austria. So
oh, wow.
I was like falsifying the waltz with some Austrian people from the event and stuff, and then I bailed, and they were just ramming champagne down my throat, and I couldn't take it anymore. And so, yeah, like, I was just totally tripping, you know. It was my first time to Europe.
Wow, what a
like,
night.
Yeah, within a couple days, I had won this contest, and I remember my roommate was Marc-Andre Beliveau.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And we were having a great time celebrating that together, and then I hit the road and went to St. Anton, and here's to Austria, I guess.
Yeah, no wonder you love Austria.
Yeah, so I went to St. Anton, won another big air event a couple nights later, and then, yeah, I got basically, like, as soon as I got done with that contest, my team manager, like, stuff on the train there in town, and I just had pockets of money, like cash and stuff, and this big weird check, and I just, like, I had to get back to the airport to fly home, and I remember, like, my parents greeted me because I flew back into Chicago, and they were just like, what?
What just
like,
happened?
What?
I think this is something no one knows about you, man. Like,
yeah,
I think you've hidden
totally.
this too well. Like, you were a badass pro skier beating Yoon Olsen in freaking Austrian New Year's events and dancing the waltz.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it was the start of it, right? Everybody has a start. And that solidified the support from Fisher, and it gave me a boost in confidence that, like, hey, I actually know what I'm doing and I belong here. I really enjoyed the community. A small community of skiers, a tight group, a lot of moves, a lot of tricks were being developed in real time in competition. You know, we were, this predates airbags, this predates a lot. Like, if anything, we had water ramps. But the sport was very punk rock. Helmets were optional, you know what I mean?
Right.
It was like, we were loose. Anyhow, I got that experience under my belt, and that just kind of like solidified things. I'm going to pursue this to the 9th degree.
And that was the ski you designed. You helped design.
Yep.
Damn.
Yep.
All right, continue.
Yep.
That's insane.
Yeah, so I was like, all right, well, I still don't know what I'm doing, but I know that if I put my heart into it, that I can get, what I want out of it. So there was a time where Fisher was feeling encouraged to reinvest some of the resources that we were drawing from to support some innovative ski race technologies. And fair enough, like, we had the O2 Olympics coming here to Salt Lake. I was still living in Truckee though, but the O2 Olympics were coming here, and I think Bodie was on the team, and he was kind of at the peak of his race career. And fair enough, like, they were like, we want to get 100% into this and get a lot out of it. And free skiing hadn't yet shown up at the Olympics or anything like that, so there was no real encouragement to continue to invest in it when there was opportunity to be had in the traditional side. So they kind of tossed the contract my way and said that, like, we can't continue to develop more skis, but we'd be psyched to continue to work with you. And I remember vividly declining that contract.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I sent it back to them. For some reason, I needed to return the contract. I don't know if it was like a decline of offer or whatever, but I remember I postmark stamped it at the Denali National Park post office.
What were you doing up there?
When you're competing in these like early free skiing events, like, we got introduced to a lot of opportunities. One most obscure opportunity was this promoter who would set up bristle ramps and airbag landings at state fairs.
Oh, wow.
And he had a show that he was doing up in Alaska at 2 of like the major fairs. And he was recruiting people basically out of the athlete lounge to like get people to show up for his ski show. And it was good.
Smart.
It was good money, and it was summertime, and I wasn't trying to go back to pounding nails, so I found myself in Alaska for a little while, and that's when this deal was needing to be committed to. And I'd already started to invest a lot of my time in the summer up in Whistler. Initially, I started as a digger at Camp of Champions, helping them slip
On the
hand-built helping them slip the hand-built half pipe, because this predates pipe dragons and all that. So you'd have like you'd have a lead digger on each wall, and they'd be cutting the vert, and then everybody would just kind of work in terms of excavating out the belly of the transition. And skiers, as we witness on television now, no matter what event, ski, snow, or indifferent, there's always a group of skiers that are slipping the pipe in between runs. And we just have better control holding 2 edges against a vertical surface, whereas a snowboard has a tendency of kind of like creating waves of tension against the wall. So we got the hall pass into the snowboard camp as diggers because we would help them manicure the pipe, which was kind of their claim to fame. And then eventually we friended the road crew of boarders there that ran the thing, and they welcomed us to invite some friends. And I actually brought Yoon Olsen and Henrik Winstep up there for their first time.
Damn.
They were camping out behind Windell's. Chris Osnes invited them over from Sweden to kind of help them become discovered. Osnes was producing his films, Clay Pigeons and Tea Time, I think, and he had caught wind of these radical Swedish skiers, and he had them out. And I remember I was skating the skate park there at Windell's, and friend Griffin Cummings and we were living in a van, just kind of sometimes had a lift ticket, sometimes just hiking up to Windell's. But we met these two young Swedes, they were like 15 or 16, and they were like, yeah, like, we're here with Chris, and he's invited us to shoot, but like, we don't have lift tickets, we have no place to stay, like, we're kind of like dirtbagging it or whatever. And we're like, well, you can come stay with us in the van. And then and they were like, we're actually going up to Canada if you want to come with us. And they were like, sure, see you, Chris. And then so Griff and I like piled in with we loaded in these 2 Swedes and dragged them up to Whistler, and like, that's how Yoon Olsen got seen.
Wow, that's crazy, because he ended up so big time.
He's one of the biggest to ever do it, and we knew it when we met him. I was like, the owner operator Ken Achenbach, Camp of Champions. I was like, hey Ken, like, Griff and I are coming, and we've got a couple of radical Swiss kids or Swedish kids. You mind if we bring them? And he's like, nah, dude, sounds sick. Like, bring them on up. And I'm like, you're gonna freak when you watch this kid ski. Both of them. And
they were like 15.
Yeah, like Yoon was on those Mad Tricks head skis where like the binding, it had the ability to rotate. Yeah, it had the ability to rotate so that if you wanted to ski the ski more centered, you could swing the binding 180 degrees. And so he was skiing his skis in that, like, yeah, because like he mounted them whatever, like non-symmetrically, right? So he had like let's say they were mounted like 5 back from center.
Okay.
So then he would turn the binding 180 degrees. So when he was skiing those skis, I think they had a near symmetrical side cut, but where the binding ended up locating his boot sole is that he actually had a shorter tip than tail. So then like all summer
like
Whistler,
literally backwards.
He was bombing into tables with his skis like this, where he actually has a longer tail than nose, and he was just doing these big floaty half caps and stuff. And it wasn't long thereafter that he started doing the Switch Misty 9, and that's kind of what he was working on perfecting. And it just didn't go his way that night in Vienna, which is how it beat him. But yeah, it wasn't random that like it was Yoon, Henrik, and I on the podium in Austria that night, because we had already, I think, spent some time together in North America. So anyhow, like through all that experience of being up in like glacier camp skiing and being around, eventually we start to take a role in attracting skiers to Camp of Champions, and we had campers and all this stuff. And I'm like, man, like we need to have control of this equipment. These kids are coming from all over the world to this summer camp, and they're showing up with 135 centimeter long poles and like flat tailed like super carver skis. And I'm like, I can't teach you anything with that equipment. Like it's just, we're just not going to get there. And so, I mean, we literally were making wind chimes out of ski poles that we were cutting off at the top of the park. Everybody would show up with poles that were like nearly 10 centimeters too long. And then it didn't take long before I started bringing skis up there for Forefront, just because I knew I could sell them to campers. And yeah, we had
You were using that
great
press you talked about.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And
So
it was
I mean,
a snowboard press. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, I mean, eventually the press got us off the ground, and there were some prototypes of that. I never skied any skis off of that press, but it gave me the physicality that, like, this is doable. And eventually went down to LA and met up with some other, like, a little bit more legitimate manufacturers that were building snowboards and skateboards, and convinced them to start building skis. And then I got linked with who is still a standing partner of Forefront, Bob Boyce, who's an engineer. He was building snowboard cores and stuff for the skate brand because his background was in water sports, and he started doing tooling for snowboards because he was real friendly with like the tooling manufacturing side. And he started engineering us some cores, and eventually we got to like legitimate tooling and a fairly legit ski manufacturer down there. They were building award-winning snowboards.
Oh, wow.
This company was called 5-Axis. They eventually evolved into like Signal snowboards.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so we kind of introduced skiing to a few different manufacturers down in LA area, and then eventually we ended up moving production up to Vancouver, British Columbia at Option, which we didn't spend a whole lot of time there, and our hands were still full and sticky with ski building. And meanwhile, like the market's starting to take off. It's like 05, 06, 07. It's like we got to get out of Tahoe, so we moved to Salt Lake.
And just tell me really quick, what is your augmentation like? I don't know, sales or distribution, amount of skis you're making each year?
I would say when we made the move from SoCal to Canada, we were taking that step from like maybe 500 to 700 pairs of skis to like 1,000 to like 1,000, 1,500. I think our
Wow.
tiered pricing proposal was like 1,500, 3,000, 5,000. And we damn near got to 3,000 with Option in Vancouver, but we just weren't able to get the manufacturing right. And I remember that spring, we were early in on ISPO and all that, and so I remember that spring we were over in Munich showing samples out of Option, and then immediately thereafter shopping around factories to relocate manufacturing. We ended up delivering that fall out of the European factories.
Oh, whoa.
Which, I mean, nobody can say that in the history of ski manufacturing, to actually show your product sampled out of one continent with the intent to fully build there, only to like completely rebuild tooling and start building out of completely new factories on the other side of the world, and still meet a reasonably appropriate delivery time. Like, I think we pushed deliveries to like November.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a trip. And at the time, now we were talking like we had Vincent Dory on. Eric Gerlosen was always part of the brand from day one. Maybe his model was coming to market I'm not certain.
Wow.
Like, we were a little late to introduce like Eric his own ski because he was a little bit younger than us. That's about it. I mean, he was always better than us. It was just a matter of when did we want to admit that this younger kid was so good.
God, he's a legend, man.
Yeah, totally. I mean, and his point of view was like, let's just make these CMH explosives. Like, this is what everybody skis in Banff, and this is like the best powder ski, you know? And I was like, well, dude, we kind of need to put our own taste on it, you know? But his first ski was like, no doubt, like we just traced the CMH explosive, which is a fat ski that Volkel made only for Canadian mountain holidays, heli skiing. So that, no different than like the pontoon movement, like when you have guests that come up from Tennessee or whatever, they need to be able to keep up with the group. So they're like, here, you're going to ski on these things, you know, and it's just like an unsinkable ski.
I think that was my first fat ski, was the Volkel Explosive, and I think it was 85 underfoot, which would be a skinny ski now.
Yeah, totally.
Like my narrowest ski is a 104, I think.
Yeah, so anyhow, like, you know, that's where Eric was coming from, was just like big mountain Rockies, straighter side cuts and stiffer tails, and so that's where his point of view was. So we were still flirting with some other ski designs with some more like freestyle centric skiers, Vinnie Dorian, Nicholas Karlstrom, Steele Spence. I had to ski the MSP still in the line, but yeah, and then EHP came to market, and then shortly thereafter like CRJ and stuff. But pretty interesting point in time because like we just needed to get the manufacturing sorted, and because we had skis that spanned a couple different categories, we were only able to deliver skis out of one factory because of manufacturing limitations. Like at the time, Elon wasn't able to grind skis that had any dimension greater than 130. So like even my ski, which was just a 90 waisted ski, all mountain ski at the time, the MSP, it had a tip that was like 136 or something.
Right.
So you're gonna end up just like having stone ground strip in the center of the tip of the ski, and we're like, that's not gonna work. So we opened up even a second factory in North Africa, working with in North Africa and Tunisia.
Whoa!
And,
how did that happen?
Well, and we were shopping around at ISPO to see if we could find anybody to build skis, and we caught.
Could you tell us what ISPO is?
Sure. I wish I could tell you what it stands for, but it's a global exposition and has historically been kind of the epicenter of global winter sports. Annually, it occurs in Munich at the Messe München, which is this big, really well developed region outside the downtown area of Munich that accommodates big trade fairs, and the Messe München would always host ISPO. And ISPO was really well known for just having like all day long activations. So there was like incredible booth representation, and the booths were just like unbelievable. You think about the proximity that all of the major ski manufacturers had to Munich, Germany. They could all drive over, and their labor laws are a lot different. Like you can just drive your car practically to your booth and unload. And so with like that kind of access, I mean, these like cathedral-esque booths were being erected every year, and it was just like, oh man, you wouldn't believe ISPO, it's so grand. And you know, live catwalk shows, and then every evening there's parties indoor and out. And Forefront, we were just like, that's where you got to be, you know. And if we want to get ahead of this and get into these emerging markets where free skiing is still so early, we need to make a move to ISPO. And so we were there a little prematurely for sure in terms of like our supply chain, our quality, like our differentiated point of view, how we could compete financially against these bigger brands. But we showed every year, and it was there where we realized like, wow, our manufacturing is not on par with the bigger brands, and we need to make a change. And that was evident at that show. And so we started talking to all the other manufacturers that were represented at the show, and every factory has typically an OEM business, so they'll also build skis for another brand because the factory needs to be profitable in itself, because it's held to like high stringent standards to like maintain employment and all these things that are, you know, nationally very important to the organization. And then there's also the branded side. It's not uncommon that some of the biggest brands will be making similar products for their competitors in their factory to fill up the capacity. And so we were chatting with a lot of different ski brands that in theory we were competing against at retail, but we felt like we had a differentiated point of view. And back then a lot of the bigger brands still didn't really have any interest in pursuing free skiing. They were still looking at free skiing is like snowblading. Like this is just like a fad that's gonna just die off, and it's gonna continue to just be about ski racing and all that. And we're like, yeah, sure, please continue to believe that, because where we're from, there's evidence that is not the reality. But like, cool, we're from the future, so let's just let it be. We were able to get cozy with Alon, who proved to be a long-term partner and was really helpful in building the brand credibility as far as quality. And then we worked with another factory, at the time it was called Sarco, but they were building skis for Movement. Serge there, who's the founder of Movement, was really instrumental in helping make that connection with Sarco, to the degree that like after ISPO, we went down to Slovenia, met with Alon, and there was an individual there named Michael Coleman, who was kind of in the product development side. He was a snowboarder, but had recently seen Armada leave Elon to go to Atomic, which, hey, isn't it coincidental that Amersport bought Armada? No, it's not, because they were already building Armada skis, right? So, like, sorry, Hans, I'm not trying to break news here, but, like, the world should know, like, that was part of a relationship, a manufacturing partnership that eventually materialized in an acquisition. And I mean, I'll be lying to say that I wasn't trying to sell Forefront to Alon. Of course I was, you know. I was like, Alon, you guys just keep doing you. I'll keep doing me. And, like, let's just get in bed because, like, this factory's sick. Mm-hmm. But, you know, they had different point of views, you know, and it's all good. I mean, I'm not going to force the hand. But anyhow, at the time, like, they were building their freeride skis up at their snowboard factory in Austria, just over the border. So the factory in Slovenia that Elon builds out of is just, like, I don't know, I'll probably butcher it, but maybe call it 15 miles from the border of Austria. And then right on that Austrian border, there's another Elon-owned factory at the time that was making all the snowboards. That community, that scene of like Austria snowboards or Elon-built snowboards in Austria eventually kind of became the basis of like the mothership for Capita, which is a thriving factory environment with great brands and awesome leadership. And Michael Coleman was coming back from that snowboard factory to the Slovenia plant after realizing that Elon had just lost Armada to Atomic. And they're like, we're not going to miss this boat in manufacturing freeride skis. So, like, you guys need a factory? Like, how soon do you need your skis? And Michael was like, we'll do it. And everybody in the room who's, like, from, like, Elon, Slovenia, looks at him like, you can't say that. And he's like, no, we're going to make that. We'll make that happen. And so he was a bit of a maverick, which was really cool. But they had limitations, right? They didn't have like the grinding capacity for the wider skis. So we also then took the opportunity to explore the factory down in Tunisia. And there they had the manufacturing capabilities to finish the wider skis. So we brought Vinny's ski and my ski there. And then Steele and Nicholas's ski stayed at Elon. And then eventually Elon updated their plant to allow for wider grinding capacity. And we brought all the skis to Elon. So every year, 2 or 3 times a year, I'd be flying over to Slovenia, either direct to meet with them and or like through an ISPO or something else. So yeah, that was just kind of the history of getting Forefront into a proper manufacturing environment and freeing us up a little bit of the stickiness of building skis as well as trying to manage this brand, which, let's be honest, nobody who worked at the brand knew anything about either. We were just like, we just love skiing and stuff. So if you were a pro skier and you were opinionated about your product, like, call Matt and like we'll do a deal where you get equity in the company, and then I'll kind of hold you accountable to like help lead the design of a ski that you think could be really influential. And that's how all the athletes came into the brand, and that's all we were really trying to accomplish was like, rather than like trying to continue to endorse these brands that really didn't have a stake in free skiing and didn't really know where we were coming from, but are building great skis, don't get me wrong, why not like get to a customer relationship with that factory? And we don't need to hear about the brand's opinion about skiing. We just want the manufacturing side of that company to build our skis. So we kind of turned our sponsors into our suppliers, if that makes sense.
It's a massive paradigm shift. Are you comfortable sharing how much equity were people getting in the company? Because I think as a pro skier, it's so hard to find longevity. And this is a direct avenue to that. And you get to own your position in the industry, which you never get to do. You're mostly a pawn in this industry as a pro skier. So to have that equity in a brand, to have some ownership of where you are and what you're going to do, that's insane, man.
Yeah. The athletes represented probably like 20% of the equity stake in the business.
That's huge.
Yeah. The financing,
10% would be huge.
Yeah, the financial side of it owned a lot of it. I carried the balance. And yeah, I mean, and we would pay. We'd pay more than we should, but I didn't want to like disrespect.
And how did that work? Did they get a percentage of the sales of their ski?
I don't think we ever did that. Like, we didn't sell enough skis. Unfortunately, we weren't ever big enough to like dangle that as a carrot. It was like, oh, I'll give you $5 for every ski we sell. I'm like, that's not going to be too much, dude. So I'm like, I'll just give you 5% of the company. How's that? Like, all right, sweet. All right, let's go skiing.
So they were getting dividends, essentially.
Yeah, well, we had to make money to make dividends, so they would get some write-offs, like if we, if you're a shareholder in a company losing money, you at least get that loss. Those are probably some of the biggest benefits we got out of it.
This episode of the SnowBrains podcast is sponsored by Mount Bachelor. Mount Bachelor is North America's 7th largest ski resort, located only 30 minutes from Bend, Oregon, known for its many breweries, scenic river trails, and year-round festivities. Bend isn't your typical sleepy ski town. Bend's upbeat adventure lifestyle, paired with Mount Bachelor's epic volcanic terrain and world-class tree skiing, make for the perfect winter getaway. Lift tickets start at just $99, or simply scan your Ikon Pass. Book your trip today at mountbachelor.com.
But yeah, like just to pull back a little bit, like it wasn't as much about how financially beneficial it was going to be. It was about being aligned with a sponsor that totally gets it. And we were struggling to get our sponsors at the time to understand what we were trying to accomplish. And I was like, we don't need that distraction. There's a lot of opportunity for innovation to deliver against the demands we're putting on skis today that they're just clearly falling short in performance of. So let me figure out how to string together a manufacturing situation here where we can then hand the reins over to you, translate those ideas to Bob. Bob can then convert those into readable files for the factory to start building prototypes. And then we started building skis here locally once we relocated to Salt Lake and had an opportunity actually to bring the press from Vancouver, British Columbia down. Part of our breakup, we're we get the press because it was built specific for us, snowboards don't need that big of a press. So they built the big press just for us. So when we decided to move production to Europe, we asked for the press as part of our parting gift, and we brought that down here, and that's what started the White Room, which was just a story about, hey, how quickly can we take idea to snow? And we had these early humble beginnings of building skis, or I did, and I'm like, it's not that difficult, especially if we're not trying to be commercial with them and we're just trying to materialize an idea. We can pull that off. And Bob was quick enough to turn, and then we all of a sudden started to realize, damn, there's actually a fair bit of local resources here with Volay. DPS was getting started here, and so they were starting to do some development. Early on, they were largely produced overseas, but they've eventually year over year come back, and I think they're now 100% built here in Salt Lake. I'm probably forgetting about a brand or two that might have been here, but also we realized that Salt Lake's kind of like a hub of composites in the West. Mm-hmm. And so we had some really awesome supply chain expertise to lean into. And so all of a sudden we actually started to develop an intellectual design point of view about how to make our skis ski better. Not just can we get that shape to snow? Yeah, we figured that out. But could we actually make that shape ski better than the skis we're getting from Europe? And then what could we potentially introduce to them to mimic our developments here so that we can apply that into the serial production of our skis for fall? And so the White Room became a pretty robust facility, and that's where Eric Jorlifson started to kind of really lean into his tinkering nature of ski design, and that gave birth to the Renegade, it gave birth to the Hoji. And still to this day, I was just looking over some numbers recently, and his skis, they're about equal in terms of overall sales velocity as the MSP, which is an all-mountain ski, which is kind of unreal because no other brand can say that their powder skis sell as well as their all-mountain skis. And so I think that's an opportunity to improve our all-mountain skis with the MSP for Forefront, but we can get to that later. But yeah, it just speaks volume to widely adored Eric's ski shapes have become throughout the years.
So those were the most popular skis.
Looking over 5 years of sales records recently, his Hoji at one point in time, around 21, 22, it was the highest volume ski sold by Forefront for the year.
Wow, that's incredible.
Which is awesome, right? 112 reverse camber.
That's proof of concept
skis.
right there, right?
Totally, right? And so he has had a huge influence on growing the brand to be adored by that consumer segment. And that's super inspirational for everybody else involved in the brand to continue to track Eric's innovation. And yeah, we've all come to learn and love his boot designs and even bindings to that degree. He was heavily involved in the Dynafit Beast, which was kind of the first real hybrid tech binding of its kind as a departure from like being a mountaineering binding, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, he's always had a way with product development and design that when we opened up the White Room, he like was basically living here. Like, I have a 14-year-old son now, and I remember he was living with us at the time when we had him. I was like, Eric, hold down the house. Like, Lisa's going in to, deliver this baby. Yeah, so like he would spend summers down here building skis. He literally would just build skis all day and figure out, if you're committed to something like that, think about how good you get at it. I remember the first year, like we had skiers that were like really anxious for the Renegades. And I was like, Eric, we need to diffuse this. And he just like sat down at the lunch table and just wrote a note, just wrote a letter. And we just sent it out to everybody that was waiting on these skis. And they were like, this was the coolest thing I've ever gotten. And I'm like, yeah,
what did
man,
he say?
We're working on it. Basically, we're working on it. Like, he was so humble and just transparent about, hey, we thought this was going to happen. Didn't work. We had all these skis pressed, and we thought that this company down south could like cut them out and finish them. Well, you know what? They were still in the same rack we dropped them off in a month later. So we had to go get them. And then we had to like throw tarps down on the half pipe in the warehouse and start finishing them ourselves. And it's 100 degrees in Salt Lake, so we can do it sometimes outdoors and sometimes indoors. You know what I mean? It's just like he was so eloquent about the reality of what we were trying to do that it just immediately diffused all the anxiety. And I feel like that was like part of what built this incredible loyalty towards the brand. And it also at the time validated a lot of Eric's point of view and product. We were just all over the place on this call. Anyhow, he was staying at the house.
Well, I think the legitimacy of having Eric, Hoji working on your skis too. Like he's physically here doing it. Continue. It's great.
Totally. Yeah. And I mean, and he's supported by a crew, right? I mean, who have become stars of the sport today, Cody Barnhill, Thane Rich. It's all happening. Meanwhile, he's like the poster boy for MSP. And he's partly in that position, not because of Forefront, I can assure you, because MSP was trying to get him on Salmon the whole time.
Oh, I'm
right?
sure, man. They're getting
because
him on the
that's
brand
their
sponsor.
Totally, right? Because he's a title sponsor. So, like, hey, like, no offense to Forefront, like, it's great what you guys are trying to accomplish, but our film is presented by, and the more athletes we can get as part of that community, the more we can draw in terms of resource. So I totally got it. But Eric was like, listen, I met Matt at Camp of Champions. We were diggers on the glacier. Like, he gave me my chance. I'm sticking with this. And he was skiing for Helly Hansen, which at the time was fully dedicated to free skiing, and it had Ian Foreman and Mike Arts with the Public Works helping support that positioning for the brand and free skiing, and like came to expect that the opening spread of Powder Magazine was Helly Hansen ad, right? And it was like an athlete typically featured in MSP films. And that was Eric Jorlefson, right? We all remember his blue jacket and his orange toque. Anyhow, Helly was pulling out of Matchstick. They were going to go a different direction. And Eric was losing his clothing sponsor. And meanwhile, he's down here at my house. We're building skis in the warehouse without any AC or ventilation. And he's about to see his big paying ski sponsor deal go away. And at the same time, he was trying to dismantle Dynafit boots to try to make him ski more like the Albello Kryptons, which we all know where that ended up, with the Hoji lock and the Vulcans, and now like it's insane. So he's got that going on the side. That's in the bedroom. He keeps all his boot parts in the bedroom. He and I are dedicated to building a certain amount of skis every day until we can appease these customers that have pre-ordered. And then he's like trying to figure out what to do with Matchstick and get a ski sponsor. So he just starts to articulate everything we're trying to accomplish with the Renegade. And he submits that as a written proposal to Arc'teryx. And they buy it.
Wow.
They buy it. And so they put him on the team. It's still to this day a really great long-lasting relationship he has with Arc'teryx. And he was like, listen, like, this is just my point of view. And they're like super gear nerds, right? I mean, they were early on developing the airbag, and their approach to technical clothing is really impressive. And so he was able to leverage some of the work that we were doing in the White Room to garner support for other category sponsors. That was just another validating experience for the work we were putting in. It wasn't materializing financially. And we felt a little limited because of what we were up against in terms of stiff competition to get real volume to market. Everything was at best in the hundreds. We were never in the thousands per model brand. Yeah, we made space for athletes who felt that they had a strong point of view around product. You know, we welcomed Kai Peterson to the team through that lens, and others, and Wiley Miller was a huge part of it too. And yeah, it became a really tight community for the brand, and the White Room helped kind of solidify and materialize a lot of ideas. And so we were probably like displaying like all the different unique models that had come out of that press that eventually made it to market. And so that's a big part of the heritage of the brand that I'm super proud of. And again, like that's part of the world that has become my surroundings. It's all through the opportunities and experience that skiing has brought to me.
And what was that Renegade summer? What year was that?
10-11, I think.
10-11, okay, way back. Damn,
Yeah.
Very, very cool. And so after 15 years, I mean, and so I guess we fast forward, if that was 10-11, after 15 years, approximately 2017, you sold, am I getting those numbers right? You sold Forefront. And so what were the key factors and emotions behind that decision? Must have been huge for you.
Yeah, it was. Like I said earlier in the call, like I was trying to sell Forefront to Alon for a long time. Because I just didn't want to have to deal with that. There was so many other things I wanted to deal with, but like having to make sure payroll was met wasn't something I needed to be burdened with. I was like, this thing...
I feel you on that.
Yeah, like this doesn't need to be that. Like there's so many other things that this is doing. There was a really robust supply chain making money off the damn thing. There was a lot of lives that were uplifted by being a part of it. There was this huge community of skiers that were bound together through like authentic interests and good, kind-hearted people that wanted the best for everyone. It was a very selfless, very giving business, and I was like, I don't need to be worried about payroll when these other core values are so critical and dear and near to my heart. If I just like solidified a manufacturer to buy this, then like we could tap into their cost of goods sold, which would overnight improve our profit margin positioning. We'd have access to distribution that we can't otherwise go out and build ourselves. Subsidiaries on every continent around the globe. We would hit the critical mass. It would be a done deal. The most important things are the relationships and the innovative positioning of the product design. And I got that covered in spades with all these rad hotshot skiers. There's more behind them, you know? But the ski industry is not a financially super healthy place to be. People can't just go out and buy companies. And no shade on anyone that I had approached over the years or whatever. Like, I just don't want it to be like this thing that like we were forced to sell or whatever. Like, no, we wanted to sell. Mm-hmm. And when we weren't able to materialize the sale, the next best thing I saw in being able to retain the things I really loved was like, all right, well, let's then change the way in which we're selling to market and focus direct to consumer. And through that process, I started to interact with Jason Leventhal very routinely and kind of like challenging my positioning with the business against what he was doing with J Skis, which came out of struggles for himself with line. We eventually kind of came to the conclusion that like, Jay, like we should just plug Forefront into your administration. And through that, we formed a new company together called Forward, which bought out all of the debts and allowed Forefront to leverage a new line of credit that Jason had built over time, defending J Ski selling direct to consumer. Because if you think about it, but not to get too in the weeds for those who are just like...
No, we love this. This is a nerdy podcast, man. Let's get
okay, cool. Yeah, because like I know that we want to hear about powder skiing and like all that. But, you know, Jason had proven the ability to forecast and sell against skis direct to the end user. And
cutting out the middleman, save a lot of money, make a lot more money.
But that's a big deal because alternatively, which is how most brands are financed, and certainly how Forefront was, is that we would go out and pre-sell all of our skis to retailers. And we would typically close that pre-season window by the end of March. And this is a young brand solidifying price lists. And we would have 3 price lists a year: Euro, Canadian, and US dollar. Mm-hmm. And retailers would not buy skis on a sliding scale. Those were committed prices. And so it was up to us to bear the risk of currency fluctuation. And there were years where I bought skis in euros on par with US dollar. And there was years where I bought skis at like $1.30 to the euro.
Ooh,
so ouch. There was a lot of gain and loss in the currency side of things. Rough, right?
That's something no one would have known about the ski industry. That's some insight.
It's insane. But then to make matters even more challenging is like to fund the production of those skis in the summer, I would need to come up with some unique operating capital. So I would take those order commitments that I would get by the end of March, and I would walk them down to the bank and say, hey, these are good businesses that have reputable credit scores for which have committed to buying this equipment from me in the fall. I need the money to make this product. And so they would lend me up to like 80% the value of those sales orders.
Wow.
As form of credit that I could use to pay Alon.
Well done, man.
To build the skis. And that's considered like factoring your receivables.
Mm-hmm.
So I basically reassigned the ownership of those receivables to the bank. So once the skis arrived, I had to deliver them within a matter of minutes. Right? I mean, there was times where I intercepted the deliveries on the East Coast and set up a temporary distribution center in like North Carolina.
Just did it by hand.
Because I was running out of time. Because they're like, hey, we extended you credit back in May. You haven't delivered yet, and it's September.
Wow.
Like you're going to lose your ass. You got to get those skis in the hands of your customers and surrender those invoices to us to start collecting against.
Wow.
And so timing would get tight. Tensions were high. And so we needed to convert those skis. So when those skis showed up, we were out there with bolt cutters, chopping the lock off the container and plowing through skis. We would convert them we would run out of ink in the printer. Within 48 hours, we would deliver everybody as soon as those skis arrived. And because it was so expensive.
Sleeping then happening.
No, and it was so expensive to send smaller shipments. So we'd try to like get everything into a container. We would float poles from Comperdel based out of Austria on top of the skis. I mean, you name it. We piled everything we could, including like anything R&D or any materials. We'd throw it all in the container. And we'd have like 12 hours with the container until it needed to return back to port because we didn't own the container.
Really? Whoa.
So we'd have to get everything out of that box. And then we'd have to break it all down. The skate ramp would be like the big like pick and pack. You know, we'd build shelving on the skate ramp and stuff to like layer things on the flat bottom and on the deck.
And how many skis are we talking in these containers?
5,000.
Whoa, okay,
Yeah.
this is massive.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 5,000 to like, we would typically fulfill our distributors direct from the factory, which was nice because they would just pay euros straight to Alon, and then that would include our profit margin. So we'd end up like helping chip away a little bit at the debt. You know, they weren't just paying the cost of goods, they were paying the cost plus some. And so we were able to accelerate some of the payables back to Alon, so we'd keep them kind of happy. But then like the lion's share of the revenue would come out of the U.S. market. So we'd have to get these skis in the hands of the retailers as soon as possible, surrender those receivables over to the bank. The bank gets paid, and then they start issuing us checks back. And so like this side of the business just sucked, right? And I was just like over that. And direct to consumer, you get paid before anything moves, right? You go online, you buy it.
Yep.
That triggers the whole delivery sequence. And so we were able to take a lot less in terms of retail price because it was still far greater than the wholesale price with terms that we were otherwise relying on. So just the fact that we were able to get paid before we shipped was head and shoulders better than having to ship that 90 days. So we went to market with Forward Inc. in the business model, direct to consumer. We went to market with the intent to like just sell skis at retail. Well, they didn't move. So we just started dropping price because any price that we dropped was still better than the wholesale price we were getting from the retailers. And we blew through like 3,500 pairs of skis in the first year direct to consumer. We were able to pay back the credit line that Jay borrowed against to get us off the ground. And within a year, we had almost surpassed our overall revenue from years past direct to consumer. And our profit margin positioning was way better.
So just black and white.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. And it was just like, okay, like we just can't, it's not that we don't want to do retail. We just can't afford it. We can't afford it, not right now. It has no shade towards retail. It's like, we totally get why ski shops exist and how important they are. It's not about that. It's like, we can't afford to do it. And we almost lost the business because of it. And honestly, I would say I did lose the business because of it, because I was just I was very loyal to a lot of those shops because like the team riders, like they helped build us to who we were. So those are tough phone calls to make in terms of like helping the brand continue to live on and remain of ongoing concern. It was a necessity. In addition, I had to let go of a lot of the pro athletes because we were over indexing on all of those salaries. We were designing a lot of skis specifically for retail that were really just making it kind of messy in terms of communicating to the end consumer what ski to buy. Like when you're selling something direct to an end user, the last thing they need are more options.
Right.
Right? You know, and
Less is
I
more.
know, yeah, I mean, like, hey, what kind of ski are you looking for? Oh, something, you know, all mountain. Cool. Here it is, you know? And we don't have 3 different versions of it. But when you're selling skis to retailers, like, you're encouraged to design skis so that you can hit a variety of different price points. I remember Vocal, they had like the BMT, right? And the V-Works. And you could get like the full carbon version or just the wood core version. And they were like $200, $300 apart. And that kind of stuff was like really influential in terms of being able to hit certain price points and maximizing the versatility of that ski shape by having a couple of different construction techniques. And that works for them. Fine, great, wonderful, good skis. But when you're selling direct to consumer, like you can't have that conversation actually thinking it's going to materialize in a sale because now they just want to go try them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but like, are you guys doing any demos or whatever? And like, I can't afford to do a demo right now. Like, yeah, I would love to load up my van and like, if you want to come out to Utah and go skiing with me, cool. Like, let's go skiing. I'll give you that access all day long and twice on Sunday, but I can't give you the luxury right now to not buy those skis so that you can then try them after I drive my van to your nearby ski area in January and then like whittle down to what ski's right for you. Like, I can't afford that. I lose my business doing that. So everything was like, hey dude, if you don't love them, return them.
Mm-hmm.
Straight up. Hey, if you don't take my word for it, then I don't know. I guess I can't befriend you. Maybe my credibility isn't great enough. And don't ever underestimate the influence of a roommate's opinion. Well, my roommate said I needed this, and it's like, well, that's cool, but I'm like maybe, I don't know, 25 years invested in this, and I think that actually this is the right product for you, but what do I know? So we're oftentimes battling against a spouse or a roommate in terms of their opinion. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the D2C thing works if you can just simplify the messaging and help the customer make the right choice, but also provide the support that if for some reason it's not what they were hoping for, that they can get into the right ski for them, because there's just not enough days on the calendar. This whole winter sports business has to basically operate as if a year-round business within just the fourth quarter, October to December.
Christmas.
That's our fiscal year. Mm-hmm. It might as well be. We could take the first 3 quarters off. So if it doesn't snow, holy shit.
Yeah.
Because it's either you're selling against anticipation or you're selling against the clock. That like, oh, it didn't snow, it's not going to be a good snow year. Like, people make opinions about whether or not it's going to be a good snow year before the new year. And that informs them to like whether or not they should buy a ski. So like, we need snow in people's front lawns and we need the resorts to open up on time. And in addition to, we need like good test results from the magazines to validate that third party point of view. We need really convincing messaging in terms of our marketing. We need to be super active in all the touch points where consumers can be found. And it all needs to happen in 90 days. Not to mention, like, if you don't sell well at retail, you're not getting your bill paid on time. So then you got to chase that receivable out till spring. And by then the retailer's like, well, will you just take the skis back? And I'm like, dude.
Oh, God.
I can't pay my bills with skis right now. I need the cash, you know? So yeah, direct to consumer became the business model that we just like needed. And Jay and I were able to simplify, streamline, lean out the business of a lot of overhead and expense, slim down a lot of the models to optimize it for D2C, and then we sold it again to a group of entrepreneurs who were like big fans of Forefront. And yeah, so that was in 2017 that I formed Forward with Jay, which kind of shut things down here Salt Lake wise, which was difficult. For sure. Had to let go of a lot of really close friends that were working in the business. The White Room kind of took a hiatus. I streamlined as best I could to minimize it down. But just without all the people and all the movement, like, things just started to become stagnant. And eventually we unwound that. The administration we had intended to leverage back east with J Skis proved to be not enough. We needed to basically duplicate agency. We needed a second set of brand managers, a second set of designers and engineers. And so Jay was a little bit less enthusiastic about having to carry two administrations that were basically duplicating the same activity. The goal was to try to streamline and leverage the scale of economics. But in the end, we were realizing we had to basically double down everywhere to meet the needs of the business. It just ended up being a more needy business than we had anticipated. So I got this opportunity to join CheckerSpot, which was an upstart biotech materials company out of the Bay Area.
So cool. Berkeley, right?
Yeah, they had curiosity around winter sports. And the work that Jay and I had done together was something I am super proud of. I learned a lot from Jason. He's a brilliant marketer, really good human. It was fun to work with him. It was my first real authentic opportunity to work with East Coast, in an authentic way. I've been buying and selling to East Coast, but I never worked with East Coast. And as a Midwesterner, I've always been curious about what's the other coast like, because I'm not from the West Coast, even though I live out here. And so that was really cool, and it has led to some really awesome, long-lasting relationships. So yeah, when I got the opportunity to move to CheckerSpot, Jay's like, cool, like this thing's becoming a little bit more of a burden than I would like to continue on. Let's see if we can get this thing into the hands of another group now that we've been able to kind of streamline and get this thing to a point where cash flow positive. Extracted a lot of this overhead. And I was building the business to be the greatest ski brand of all time. Jay's like, cool, it hasn't happened after 15 years, so let's just kind of build it to be what it is and be healthy for what it is. And I'm like, cool, I'm down for that. If that's what's going to help it remain of ongoing concern, I'm all for it. Yeah, it was tough to have to deconstruct a lot of things that I had built sentimentally that I thought would be critical to the longevity and scale that I wanted the brand to be. But having not been able to materialize that growth, these were unnecessary bits and pieces of infrastructure we didn't need. And so we streamlined the SKU count back by half. We obviously had to let go of a lot of athletes. We had to deconstruct the administrative team, downsize the office overhead and all of that, only to rebuild it in a smarter, leaner way elsewhere. And then when the opportunity came to network with this new group, which is 3 individuals that were all fans of Forefront, skiing on Forefronts already, Hoji's of course, it became a great opportunity to okay, here's a brand that's been optimized to succeed. It has little overhead. We've already placed some people that are really good at what they do that could come along with it. Eric's enthusiastic, he'll come along with it. And, for the most part, I don't even know if the market felt that transfer of ownership, which was 100% the point. And they were like, we want to retain.
I didn't know that happened. I thought Leventhal was in control.
Yeah, no. So Jay and I got it at the same time. And then, it's been held by this party. It operates as Forefront Skis, Inc., I believe. I'm pretty sure it's Forefront Skis, Inc., and it's managed by really passionate skiers, small group, if anything, mostly still East Coast based administration. But a lot of the management of the brand is done remotely, so a lot of the individuals contributing to the brand are spread out across the continent, depending on the time of year, and staying true to the commitment to ensure that the athletes remain a big part of the product design and representation. And I went on my way. I started the chapter with CheckerSpot and kind of ended up being on the sidelines for the first time in, 18 years or whatever, 17 years to kind of see this. Wow,
lifetime, man.
Yeah, it's like my kid went to college and I was like, cool, I'm going to stay here. Yeah, just keep an eye on things. And so, I started up with CheckerSpot.
Did you move to Berkeley or was it remote?
No, it was remote because the opportunity was here. Honestly, they had looked at, maybe I should just back up a step here to string some things together, is that CheckerSpot was a startup company that was looking to introduce microbial oil extracted from microbes. And the scientific point of view was engineering oil from microalgae using sugarcane. And so there was a commercial fermentation plant based in Brazil that had been built and ultimately failed to succeed supplying these microbial oils as an alternative to petroleum for diesel. So industrial fuels. So the plant was built, the infrastructure was there, but there's no longer demand. And a lot of that came as a consequence of the cost of crude oil in kind of the pre-teens of 2011 to 2013 or so, where oil reserves let up and the cost of crude went way down, and all of a sudden there was no longer a viable path to build these microbial oil alternatives for fuel. So the company had committed nearly $1 billion in venture capital to succeed in this venture, and towards the tail end of the organization, they pivoted to explore some other markets, personal care, and they actually did pretty well in personal care, and then food and nutrition. One of the chief engineers and scientists behind the technology and one of the leads on the commercial team that was experimenting with other markets left that organization to form a new company called CheckerSpot, where they would go back and establish relations with that fermentation plant in Brazil. The new owners being now based out of the Netherlands, I believe. The Dutch group came in and bought the infrastructure and start to explore other use cases that they felt would be really influential in exploring with this type of tech. It not being transportation fuels, but other types of materials. And so specifically, they were looking at industrial polyurethanes. And one of the classes of products that was curious to them, the founders, was winter sports. Namely, Charlie Dimmler, the CEO, co-founder of CheckerSpot, went and explored a little bit in the world of ski manufacturing, went to Austria, participated in a ski building experience, and was kind of confronted at ISPO by there just not being a ton of true innovative difference in product design. Like, skis were still being made the way that he kind of thought they were, which was just wood, glass, and steel edges. Mm-hmm. And so he was like, yeah, this actually could be a really interesting place to explore use of these types of rigid polyurethanes derived from this microbial oil technology. And so I think he put out some feelers, and it eventually got to me, and we linked up, and I was like, send me some of your materials, and I'll, we had the white room still. It was kind of in a much more scaled down version of itself, but it was still there. And I was like, send it to us and we can see like how it performs. And he's like, no, like it's not like that. Like, it doesn't even yet exist. And I was like, oh, well, I don't know. Like, are you just asking me for like feedback on like whether or not this to do it or whatever? And he was like, no, I think I'd like to hire you to do this. And I was like, oh shit, man. Like, never thought about working for a Bay Area company, I'm a Tahoe kid. Like, anyhow, I was like, all right. Yeah, I'm like, as a resident of Truckee, it's like, oh shit, tourists are coming up. Come like Tuesday, everything's quieted down again. And so I was like, man, I'm going to jump in the deep end with some Bay Area people and explore building skis out of like biotechnology. This is going to be wild. But I was also like, man, like maybe this feels like a door I need to walk through, and
interesting, bizarre opportunity that you would never just have guessed, being a ski bum.
Yeah, totally. And I was like, kind of like, I was thinking a lot about whether or not to pursue it. And I was getting to know Charlie pretty good. And this is what helped solidify the commitment. He kind of went dark on me. Ooh. Not like dark in like conversation, like, but like, it's kind of like all of a sudden became tough to get a hold of. And so I think I was kind of like, oh man, like whatever, like I'll give it some thought, Mm-hmm. And then like I reach back out and I don't get a call back. And then like I shoot a text and I don't hear back. And now I have in my stomach this like feeling like, dude, did I blow this? Like, did I miss this window of opportunity? And like all of a sudden I became like super anxious. Like, I need to get a hold of him. This could be, and I was like, I need to do this. I manifested all this anxiety, of course. And so he calls me back, like, whatever. He's like, oh, sorry, dude, I had to, like, jump on a plane to go deal with something for a sec. Like, yeah, like, what do you think?
It was not purposeful.
No, not at all. And I'm like, oh, I'm in. Let's go. Yeah. I'm like, sorry, dude. Was I cool guying you? I apologize. Like, I'm in, Like, this sounds way too cool. Like, I don't know anything about this, but, like, it sounds sick. And it was like, yeah, like, we want you just to, like, go at this like you have in your past. But, like, even further, like, we want to build a facility. And, like, let's leverage the resources Salt Lake has as a complement to the Bay Area, where we're otherwise going to be financially compromised to build all that out here in the Bay, where we don't need all that square footage and all that stuff. We can use it where you're at. You stay home. Build the team. You know the people. You know the supply chain. Like, how long do you think it's going to take us to get a ski to market? I'm like, I don't know. Like,
wow.
And so I was like, cool. Like, it came out as, like, innovate at all costs. Make this shit real. And I was like, okay. And I'm like, here we go. And so I got to start building kind of a dream team. I got to hire people from my past life at Forefront who were still around and available to jump in and collaborate, which was really a huge accelerator of getting the brand to market, as I had promised. I got to welcome Pep Fugis, who had been a longtime great friend and colleague, which in the past I had nothing to compete against
Another
K2
legendary
with.
skier.
Totally. But like, I mean, Pep, what is it that Forefront can do for you that K2 isn't already doing? Like, come on, dude. You had the Fugitive, like, it's all there. Mm-hmm. And so he, was in a position of opportunity to pursue something a little bit different than his pro ski career. And so I was able to attract him to the team. And snowboarding side, I got Alex Andrews, Nick Russell, and anyhow, just like, I apologize for not bringing up everybody's name. Podcast can't support it, but there was nearly 50 people at the Salt Lake facility across 40,000 square feet.
Whoa.
Just down the street from DPS. Built to suit our facility. Man, we were killing it. The brand exceeded expectations in terms of its ability to animate the technology.
And you call it Wonder, right? It's just, you took the vowels out.
Yeah, Wonder Alpine. Yeah, took the vowels out. That gets talked about.
It's your thing.
It's my thing in that it's one less variable to overcome when you're trying to establish intellectual property rights to a word.
Oh, that's smart.
There's so many common words that you try to go and present to the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, and they're like, you can't own that. It's already owned for all these other classes, and you're locked out. But if you kind of create your own word, kind of like pharmaceuticals, like, why do you think all these pharmaceuticals are so weird? It's because they're ownable, right? It's just all ownable words, right? And they come up with these like little catchy songs to try to familiarize how to pronounce it, but it's just ownable words.
And I'm pretty sure the Phoenicians built the first alphabet, and they did not have vowels. It was just, you might know that too, like just consonants, and you had to figure out the vowels yourself.
I did not know that. Thank you for that. That's
I could
great.
be off on it, but I think that's accurate.
No, well, I mean, I believe you. And in the Urban Dictionary, this technique is known as disemvoweling.
Disemvoweling, I like that.
Yeah.
Like
it's in the Urban Dictionary. If you now look to present and how we abbreviate a lot of words over text message, we do a lot of disemvoweling.
Absolutely.
LMK, IDK, stuff like that.
THX is how I say thanks, always.
There you go. Anyhow, I guess I was early on in the disemvoweling movement, but it was largely just a way to, initially Forefront was done so because in that era of 2002, I mean, buyer's guides were everything. That's how you sold skis. And
How to Magazine, Ski Magazine, etc.
Right. And how do you get to being the first page of every buyer's guide? Atomic's already there. Why do you think you always see in every town like AAA towing?
So that was the move. Forefront. You were the digit instead of the
I was
letter.
the number. Numbers go before letters. Mm-hmm. And that's why you hear AAA towing, right? Because there's no other towing company that's going to be earlier in towing than AAA towing. And it's no more complicated than that. And so 4 was a necessary character to integrate, and then the brand Forefront came out of that. It was originally Forecast, and then Chris Turpin encouraged me to convert it to Forefront. Yeah, thank you, Chris, for that. And then, so yeah, Wonder Alpine, it's a little tongue-in-cheek, but I was thinking originally it was number 1, DER.
Oh, you just should have called DER.
Yeah, it was Wonder. Yeah, the number 1, DER. And
okay, so you're going for the digit again, the number again.
And we were talking about it internally, and they're like, Matt, I see what you're trying to do there, but I think it might be stronger if we use the letter W. And I'm like, yeah, cool. We were working with a branding agency, Storius. Mm-hmm. Great group. Chad, Linda, and Chris, thank you so much for all your help. And they challenged. Obviously, we spent a lot of time exploring words that met the type of brand philosophy we were looking to present. Wonder was something that was definitely of curiosity, and that's kind of for its literal context, as well as just think it's a cool word. And then I started to think about ways that we could use it in an ownable way, because the traditional spelling of wonder is not something which you can seek out intellectual property protection of. But disemvoweling it, now you had something. And we weren't the first to disembowel Wonder. And so there was some of that challenge for sure, but that's how we ended up with Wonder Alpine. Anyhow, it was a project that provided me an opportunity to see how could I accelerate the brand building process that I just endured with Forefront in an abbreviated period of time. And also, would it be possible that I could start to, penetrate the supply chain?
And going direct to customer again, I assume.
Yeah, definitely. Applying all those learnings, everything. Applying all the learnings in ski design, product design, networking, partnerships, marketing, content creation, all that. In addition to trying to commercialize the material and challenging supply chain. because I felt like if we could penetrate supply chain, because it was and still is to this day a heavily monopolized raw material supply chain. We're not building exponentially more skis as an industry year over year. So there's only so many raw material suppliers supporting the steady consumption of ski-specific materials annually. So it doesn't give a whole lot of incentive for new companies to come in to produce look-alike materials because there's no growth in the category. So if you're an industrial materials company, you're not seeking out the ski and snowboard industry to debut your materials unless there's a bigger objective in mind. We were that unicorn with a unique objective with venture capital to deploy.
I was just going to ask where the capital. I was guessing because they already raised.
We raised
Series B already.
Yeah, we had gotten through Series C while I was with the company. That was up until August of 2024. So I joined in 18 and was there for about 6 years. And we went from a Series seed through A, B, and C. Wow. Nearly 100 million.
Damn.
In venture capital.
Just for Wonder Alpine.
No, it definitely wasn't all for Wonder Alpine. There were other interests that we were pursuing, but we had that kind of ambition as an organization. We were going out to become adequately capitalized to explore a wide variety of uses of this technology, not only industrial materials, which is what Wonder Alpine was in service to support, but there was also interest in food and nutrition from day one that we were exploring, as well as personal care and other aspects of the business that pertain to building and farming intellectual property and things of that nature that would be of significant value. Yeah, we had obviously the opportunity to lean into fairly robust administration to materialize this brand and to hit the gas on exploring a variety of use cases of the technology materialistically.
Wow, that's fun, man.
We started with a rigid foam, and then we took the same base polymer and developed a cast urethane for sidewalls. And we had point of view around manufacturing reclaimed waste streams, all in support of our awarded B Corp certification, which was really defined guardrails in terms of how we needed to consistently improve in our process in terms of leaning out the carbon footprint and supporting the global benefit of people and planet.
And essentially what a B Corp is, right? It's still for profit, but it gives a benefit to the community.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I mean, it was killer, but like at the end of the day, we didn't materialize the industrial adoption of any of the materials. So while yes, we had like Wonder Alpine chugging along, I mean, we were doing north of $1 million in revenue. We were up to, 2,000 pairs of skis and snowboards. And I think we were at a point where we were able to actually start to see line of sight to supply chain support, like getting other manufacturers to build a product for us. We weren't able to get the automotive, aerospace, and building materials industry to adopt the tech. And so while, like this brand that was largely in purpose to like market the materials is generating revenue, it's not a meaningful enough amount of revenue to support all of this overhead. We hired people to build skis and snowboards with the intent to also utilize their craftsman or craftswoman capabilities, avoiding the term craftsmanship, but like a craftsperson's abilities to also develop a wider variety of use cases of the technology.
So the technology is good. You're confident in the technology. It's just the adoption into these industries that you needed it to be adopted into.
Right. And we were so close. Like we had government contracts that were pending and all this, but it just wasn't materializing. And the company had gotten to a point where it was starting to kind of get line of sight to its reserves. And it had to make some hard decisions. There was conflict at the executive level between founders. And
when cash flow gets dry, that's what happens.
Things started to get really messy, and they declared that we're gonna wind this thing down. So in state here, domestically in Utah, we're winding down that entire administration, that whole organization.
That's current. That's concurrent right now.
That's it. Yeah, I was let go in August, along with 30 others, PEP included.
Oh, I'm so sorry. And so where's Wonder's Alpine stand right now?
Dormant.
Okay. Oh, I'm so sorry, man. What a cool project, though. And this was a sustainable technology, right?
It is a eco-innovation, and there's room and opportunity for more. Mm-hmm. But it's going to take capital, and it's going to need reinforcement from outside the industry to make it stick. Because just like the venture capitalists grew impatient with their investment in the ski industry through Wonder Alpine, you're not going to get a quick return on that buck. And that's why we don't see a lot of innovation in terms of eco innovation in the ski industry today, because how are you going to reclaim all of that investment to develop it when you know every year you're just going to end up selling the same amount of material? So if it's going to spool up $1 million to $2 million, $10 million in R&D, how do you pay that back? You're not going to sell exponentially more product next year. You already have the marketplace. It's monopolized. They're just going to keep buying the same stuff from you no matter what it's made out of, because you're the place that makes it. And there's only so much room in the industry for that amount of supply. And that's no shade towards any of the suppliers or any of the brands of whom are building products out of lookalike materials to their competitors. It's just the nature of the industry.
It's like the fossil fuel industry. It's tough to compete with these industries where it's already established. Yeah. It's what everybody uses. It's cheaper at this point for them to do it. And who has the guts to invest in these new technologies, especially eco-friendly? Checkerspot did, and I think that's so cool that they got the VCs on board, the venture capitalists on board, and those people on board, and that it didn't work out is such a bummer, because you're right, you were at a very interesting cross-section of true unicornism.
Yeah, and we had other brands that were curious about the tech, and we were getting there in terms of helping them adopt it and whatnot. Kind of ran out of time, but it really scratched a great itch for me in terms of being able to envision what I could do with a shorter period of time and more resources. I do feel invincible in that regard from my experiences in the past of what I'm capable of. And in the same breath, like when all that happened, I called up those 3 entrepreneurs who bought Forefront from Jay and I said, hey, listen, it's been as difficult it is to sit on the sidelines and see this brand operate without me. It's also been an incredible honor to see it continue to live on in fruition and to see how you all have carried it forward with such great humility and authenticity, and that apologies if there was ever a threat from Wonder Alpine to like borrow or steal market share, but that was never our intent. Our goal was to materialize technology, and the only way we could do that was by featuring it ourselves. And that if there's ever an opportunity where you guys feel a need to rekindle with me as the founder, I'd be more than happy to have that conversation. And 3 weeks later, they called me back and were like, Matt, we'd love to have you.
Oh, great. And what's your capacity now at Forefront? This is breaking news, man.
Yeah, totally. And so in September of 24, I started talking with the owners, and right around the new year, I solidified a new ownership agreement with Forefront. And I'm back.
And so that was only about a year ago.
Yeah, I mean, we were recording this in August. We're 8 months or so into working together again. I spent the winter getting reacquainted with the equipment. Manufacturing has transitioned entirely to Quebec. We're working with a great manufacturer there. I'm back working with Bob Boyce as the engineer of the MSP, and we have ideas on how to innovate and continue to evolve that model, which is still in market, which is fun as it's tied to my namesake and legacy with the business as our first model back in 2002. Yeah, I actually got the opportunity to host several colleagues within the business, including Eric, throughout the winter, and so we kind of had the frat house vibes again.
Oh, that's so fun, man.
Which was a lot of fun, and so I'm going to continue to contribute in product design, continue to help support the heritage that the brand has here locally in Salt Lake, and continue to develop strong partnerships where I think we have a good fit, and also continue to explore areas where we can optimize sales growth in terms of new distribution, potentially working in new markets, and also with some new dealers. So, you know, I'm in as an owner role. I'm not day to day, but I'm exactly where I want to be. And personally, I'm leaning more heavily into ski guiding and pursuing the AMGA, and have just kind of started to take some of the initial steps there in terms of building some credentials to start to bring some people out in the backcountry for real. So yeah, my thirst for skiing continues to live on, and there's something really sentimental about coming back to this brand that when I look down at the top sheets, it just is a slideshow of memories that bring me all the way back to my 20s, where I was describing the letters Forefront on the back of Bay Area SUV windows as if it was like a 12 Monkeys gang in Olympic Valley there. So I get a lot of joy out of being a part of the brand again. It brings back a lot of familiar, fond memories and connections to people that I may or may not physically have anymore. So I'm super excited to be back with Forefront and to have this as a platform and sharing the story of how this whole thing has kind of come full circle for me has been a true honor, Miles. So I appreciate it.
I would have never guessed the story went any of these directions. I thought it would be so straightforward. Yeah, I was a punk kid and I made a ski and I had a special break and I made a ski and then it went well. I sold it, made a bunch of money, started another company. And I thought Wonder was still rolling. So super fascinating story, man. I really appreciate you sharing all this. I love that your next steps are actually, so you're going to be a ski guide or you're already a ski guide. You're going to get certified. What's your title now at Forefront? I think that's really interesting.
That's a good question. I guess it'll
Undefined.
just always,
I like that.
Well, I think it'll probably just remain founder.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not involved in the day-to-day. There's a great team, some of whom were placed, Jay and I, running it kind of in that intermediate phase as forward, and they've done a fabulous job, and I want to continue to support them in their roles. But yeah, I mean, my story is really no more complicated than just the story of a founder, and like, what were we out to solve for when we started this thing, and how is it that in 2025 we still are committed to that same mission? And I feel like we don't have the luxury of knowing or having a tether to those stories for some of the bigger brands in our space. And so where I think independent skiing needs to be is in that conversation with the consumer, where you can feel a connection to the people who started the brand and the why behind it. And so I'm here to help defend that. And while we're coming close to 25 years of history, I feel like there's still a lot of relevant opportunity that lies ahead for the business, and I'm excited to be a part of that.
I have so many buddies. I've had so many good times, including the guy I'm here in Patagonia with, Greggy, on Forefront skis, man. So I can confirm, as you know already, that a lot of smiles have been cracked because of what those skis can do. So we appreciate what you've done in this industry. I hope you continue. I want the best for Forefront and all your projects, man. And I'm really excited to hear more about you and see you getting into the ski guiding world, especially in Utah. And it's just limitless there, the opportunities and connections and people that I'm sure you already know. Well, that's all I got for you, man. Is there anything else you'd like to share here at the end of the show?
No, that's it. I mean, just please tag and follow Forefront. Stay tuned. We're going to continue to innovate and evolve. And if you're ever in Utah and you want to go skiing, look me up on Instagram. I'd be psyched to meet up and go rip. I like to ski Cottonwoods a lot. And if I'm not here, I'm somewhere up in Rogers Pass hanging out, skiing some pop up there with the Canadians.
Well, I like both of those things, man. So I would love to connect with you and ski in Utah, man. I'll drop you a line in November for sure.
Looking forward to it.
I appreciate you,
Miles.
Matt.
Thanks,
Have a great rest of the day.
Yeah, you too, brother.
Thank you so much for listening to the SnowBrains podcast. If you liked this podcast, please share with friends and family, and please be sure to subscribe. To find out more about SnowBrains, please visit us at snowbrains.com. You can also find us on Instagram, X, Facebook, and more. This episode of the SnowBrains podcast is sponsored by Mount Bachelor. Top-notch terrain parks, pristine corduroy, powder days and spring corn. Mount Bachelor has it all. Open November 28th through Memorial Day with a stacked event lineup featuring live music, on-snow bars, and fun for the whole family. Reserve a camping spot slopeside or stay in the heart of Bend, Oregon, only 30 minutes away. Lift tickets start at $99 or scan your Ikon Pass. Book your trip today at mountbachelor.com. This episode of the SnowBrains podcast was edited by Liam Abbott, and I'm your host, Miles Clark.